Okay guys, welcome to experiment number 8. Today we're going to be looking at a qualitative analysis of household chemicals. Now you should have this flow chart printed out, and in this flow chart we start off with the substances that we're trying to identify. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do 3 unknowns, and I'm just going to pick them at random. I pick 1, and I'm picking unknown number 3, and let's see, let's pick unknown, unknown number 8. Now, if I look at the unknowns, okay, notice they're all white powders. So just by looking at the color, I can't tell what's what. Okay, I am going to have to do tests to see what's what. So what we're going to do is we're going to do what are called presumptive tests. In a qualitative analysis, we keep doing tests that separate things into groups until we get down to identification. So the first test we're going to perform is we're going to take a little bit of our unknown and we're going to add it to a test tube, and then we're going to add some water to it. Okay, so I'm starting out with number 1. So write down unknown number 1 on a piece of paper. Okay, and then you're going to write what happens when we add water. So I've added water, okay, and now we're going to shake. What we're trying to see is if it dissolves up in water or not. Okay, so I'm shaking. Now, look at the tube. It dissolved up in water. You do not see solid sitting there at the bottom. So for number 1, we're going to write that it dissolved in water. So number 1 was water soluble. Okay? Let me grab a piece of paper because I got to write this down too. So number 1 was soluble. Now, because it's soluble, it means that I either have sodium chloride, sodium bicarbonate, sucrose, sodium hydroxide, fructose, magnesium sulfate, boric acid, or sodium carbonate. So the next test we do is phenolphthalein. Okay, so I can take phenolphthalein. There's my bottle of phenolphthalein. Phenolphthalein. Okay, and I'm going to add it to the tube. Now, trying to see if it turns pink. Well, I add the phenolphthalein and it's clear. So I can write phenolphthalein did not turn pink. Okay? Now, because it didn't turn pink with phenolphthalein, I know that I have sodium chloride, sodium bicarbonate, sucrose, fructose, magnesium sulfate, or boric acid. So the next thing I'm going to do is add sodium hydroxide. Now, I'm going to get a fresh tube for that because when I put the sodium hydroxide in, it's going to turn pink. Because sodium hydroxide is a base. Remember, we use that as an acid-base indicator. So I have a fresh test tube. Okay? And I am going to add sodium hydroxide to it. So let me find the sodium hydroxide. Come on, where's my sodium hydroxide? Well, that's okay. I've got some sodium hydroxide over here. Got a bottle of sodium hydroxide. Shake it up a little bit more. Now, I'm going to add sodium hydroxide to this. With the addition of sodium hydroxide, I don't see it going all white and cloudy. Okay, no white and cloudy. So I say NaOH, no reaction. Now, since I got no reaction with sodium hydroxide, I know that I have either fructose, sucrose, sodium, boric acid, sodium chloride, or sodium bicarbonate. So I'm going to get another test tube. Well, I can take the one that I have sodium hydroxide in, and I'm going to add the copper reduction solution. Okay? Now, this one actually has to sit for a little bit. So we're going to sit it right there and we're going to watch it. And while I'm waiting for that to happen, I'm going to try adding some vinegar to a little bit of the solid. So I'm going to get another test tube because I'm impatient, and I'm going to add vinegar to it. Okay, so where's my vinegar? There's my vinegar. Now, I'm looking for bubbles. I don't see any bubbles, so I can write vinegar, no bubbles. Okay, no bubbles at all. Since there are no bubbles, okay, I know that I do not have sodium bicarbonate. So again, I put that over there. I check here again. If it's fructose with this copper sulfate, I expect this tube to start going a red color. It's not red yet. So I am going to try mixing some of my solid with alcohol. Okay, maybe a little much. Okay, there's my solid. And I'm going to add alcohol to it, because that's my next presumptive test. Okay, shake it up. Now let's look at it. Really doesn't look like anything's dissolving up. It's the same amount that I started with. So for alcohol, it's insoluble. Okay? That means it's either sodium chloride or sucrose. So I need to get some hot water. Now I've got a sink that gives me hot water. It'll take it a second to warm up. So while we're waiting on that, let's look at that fructose test. I still don't see any red color in there. I see a little of the black that came from the copper sulfate reduction solution. Okay, nothing's turning red. So I can say with some confidence, not fructose. Okay, that means that I'm down to it either being sucrose or sodium chloride. And the water test is going to give us our answer. Okay, I have a tube of hot water. I'll put just a little scoop here in. Okay, and we're going to shake. That went in very easily. Since it dissolved up very easily in hot water, then we're going to say sucrose. So test tube number 1, we've identified as sucrose. Okay, now we're going to try test tube number 3. So we've moved on to test tube 3. And we're going to go through the same tests. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put some solid in a test tube, and we're going to see if it's water soluble. Okay, I put some water in, and I'm going to shake. Okay, it looks pretty water soluble to me. So test tube number 3 dissolved in water. So I'm headed down the same path I was earlier. Okay, so it was water soluble. Now we're going to add phenolphthalein. Didn't turn pink. So did not react with phenolphthalein. Okay, now I need to get a little bit more of the solid. Put it in a tube. Add some water to it. And add sodium hydroxide. Oh, look there. We got that white fluffy stuff. So that means that we got magnesium sulfate. So test tube 3 reacted with NaOH, so we have magnesium sulfate. And we've got number 3 identified very quickly. Okay, one more tube and you will have run through a qual scheme. So now we're going to go to test tube number 8, sample number 8. So we start again by taking some solid, putting it in a tube, and adding water. So test tube number 8. Okay, now notice that it's staying very cloudy. So that means that we're water insoluble. So I've either got calcium sulfate, calcium carbonate, or starch. So our next test is to add iodine. So I have a bottle of iodine here, and we're going to add iodine. Okay. Now, if it was starch, okay, it would turn deep blue. That's brown. So it means I either have calcium sulfate or calcium carbonate. So did not dissolve in water and did not react with iodine. Okay, so the next thing I want to do, if it stayed brown, is add vinegar. So I get my vinegar, okay, and what we're looking for are bubbles. Do you see any bubble formation? I don't see it bubbling. Now, as a double check, okay, I'm going to take a little bit of number 8. Number 8. And I'm just going to put some vinegar straight on it, just to be on the safe side. Okay, because I'm wanting to be doubly sure. Do you see any bubbles? I don't. So, didn't react with vinegar. So since it didn't react with vinegar, we know that it's calcium sulfate. Okay, so that is a qual scheme. So for each one of the unknowns, you're going to write in for me what you saw happen. All right, guys, send me a sheet written out everything that we just walked through. And you're done with the qual scheme.